You're listening to the New Artist Workshop.
Since when do you know how to fly? 190 years old? You look great.
Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. Now that's what I call a franchise. I'm Peter Mancuso.
And I'm Viviana Metzger, and this is the show where Peter and I pick a film franchise and go through every single installment. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
And to be clear, we're defining a franchise as a series of films with at least 4 entries. So Viviana, what are we talking about today?
Alright, so today we are talking about the 2018 film Solo, a Star Wars story. And this is your one and only spoiler warning, so if you haven't watched the movie, go do that before listening to this episode.
I'm really disappointed.
If you can.
Because... What do you mean, if you can?
Unless you can't see it, then you know.
Well... So,
Too dark.
I was a little disappointed because remember we talked about for Revenge of the Sith? They threw in as like a little bonus feature on the DVD. Like, it was like a secret bonus feature, like if you hit the certain buttons on the remote in a certain order, a little video of Yoda breakdancing would appear.
Oh, I think so, yes.
It's a real shame that they didn't capitalize on the mammothly successful Star Wars Connect.
Yeah.
With its, I'm Han Solo, it's a real shame they didn't do that, like, for the, you know, like, in credits for, like, 90s movies, they would, like, dance, like Men in Black, or, like, animated movies, like Shrek.
Yes, of course.
They should have done that for this.
Was that out by then?
Connect Star Wars came out, like, 2012. It was like one of the first Connect games. It was, like, the big flagship game, and it was awful.
Okay.
It was being built like, wow, you're gonna really feel like a Jedi because you'll be mini games where you're like,
oh, and they didn't even do anything about it.
But it literally was so. It's like it was so forgettable. Like I forget it existed. It's like one of the weird pre-Disney. It was like one of the last pre-Disney Star Wars things. So it's like it holds like a weird place in Star Wars history. Regardless of the levels of canon. It was certainly not canon.
Well, we just loved dancing back in the day, you know.
We used to love dancing, not anymore.
We used to love dancing. We made it into our pastime.
Honey, famously, humans have never liked dancing until about maybe 10 years ago. And then they liked it for a few years. When we look at ancient cultures, we can't find any records of dancing.
No. People like dancing, but people don't elect to dance while they're watching TV anymore. Whereas back in the day, you're like, okay, you want to play a game? You want to play video games? Sure. Okay, let's sit down and play. Haha, just kidding. It's the Kinect. You have to get your ass up and move.
That's true.
Anyways, here's the letterbox.
A letterbox blurb.
A blurb of a box of letters.
Oh my goodness.
Through a series of daring escapades deep within a dark and dangerous criminal underworld, Han Solo meets his mighty future co-pilot Chewbacca and encounters the notorious gambler Lando Calrissian.
Okay, so you fumbled the letterbox blurb, like saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm actually really impressed that you got through that whole thing because there's a lot of words that I could see that could trip you up.
No.
We have dangerous criminal underworld, Chewbacca,
What's wrong with
notorious gambler. I don't know. It's not the words. It's going from one word to the next because it's like
That's
your
true.
mouth is like geared for a certain word, and then like another word comes up, and it's like a different. I don't know.
You do know that my mouth gets stuck sometimes.
You get tongue tied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like when I had to wear my my retainers like 24 hours or 23 hours, 22. Whatever.
That's right. Yeah, you were.
My lips would always get stuck on it.
When we would do the show, you mean?
It'd be dry.
Yeah. You want to hear some basic info about this? So it was directed by Ron Howard.
I did see that.
Interestingly, that's a whole story that we're gonna have to talk about.
saw
But of
that.
course, before this, he was a very well-established actor turned director. Notably, he was in American Graffiti. with George Lucas wrote and directed.
He acted?
Yeah, he was in it.
Oh, I only know him as the director.
Well, he started on the Andy Griffith Show as like a child actor, like 9 or like younger. And then he was kind of still trying to be an actor when he was a teenager into his 20s, and then he did American Graffiti, which was a huge hit. And American Graffiti kind of inspired Happy Days, which he was on, and Cindy Williams, who was in American Graffiti, was also in that. And then eventually he wanted to become a director. So notably, he directed things like Willow, which we talked about was like a Lucasfilm movie with Warwick Davis, the little person.
Yes.
It was like a fantasy movie from the 80s.
Yeah.
He directed the movie Parenthood, which is kind of like a dramedy about different parent-children relationship that was then turned into a TV show like decades later on NBC.
Sounds familiar.
I think maybe it wasn't NBC. Also did Apollo 13. Your favorite movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
A Beautiful Mind, The Da Vinci Code, and that's just a small list.
Good job, Ron.
Of stuff. It was written by Jonathan Kasdan and his father Lawrence Kasdan, right? So
son and father.
Father-son business. Of course, Lawrence Kasdan co-wrote episodes 5 and 6, and also co-wrote episode 7. So he's, definitely Star Wars royalty, if you will. Produced once again by Kathleen Kennedy, along with Allison Shearmur and Simon Emanuel. I don't know who they are. I'm sorry. It was distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It was released in May of 2018, so it bucked the new tradition of the Star Wars movies coming out in December because they realized how much money they can make. It had a budget of $288 million, and it only grossed $393 million, so it was the lowest percent return of the franchise.
Well, shit.
And as we know, the budget number does not account for marketing and advertising. So a good rule of thumb is if you want to ideally double the budget, and that's how you break even, is like you double the budget. So this was a flop. Quite possibly the first true flop in the Star Wars franchise. Oh. We've had a lot of movies that, had they been released in theaters, probably would not have done well. Because, of course, we're including things that people don't normally would consider, like, like the Star Wars films. This is like a full-on, multi-million-dollar Star Wars movie. And it did not do very well. So what was your previous experience? Did you know this existed? Because we did not watch this when we binged all the movies.
No, yeah.
Back when we first started dating.
This was my first time watching it. I do remember really wanting to watch it because they both like Han Solo, and then I also was like, whoa, Childish Gambino. And so I was like, oh, I should go see that. And then I just never did. And then I just never saw it.
So you knew it existed.
Yeah.
You were like aware, the market, you were aware.
I always wanted to go see it, and then like by the time it was like out of theaters, I was I don't know. I was busy. As we know. So yeah, so this was my first time. This is my first time
It's my first time.
Yeah, but you said you had seen it before, right?
Yes, only once though, because I saw it.
In the theaters.
I did see it in theaters with Tony, with my neighbor, my former neighbor Tony, who's the one who introduced me to Star Wars. So when I came home from, it always worked out that these movies were either coming out in December or May, which is like exactly when I would be coming home after a semester. So we went to go see it. I thought it was fine when I saw it. In the theater, I was like, I cannot see shit. In the theater, it looked awful.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I can tell it's shot well.
Yeah.
Like the cinematography itself is actually decent. It's just the color grading is so gray and dark. And part of me almost wonders, is it the lighting? Because a lot of it looks like there's like no key light. Like everything looks backlit.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or fill. It's all back and fill, and there's no key. There's no key.
I feel like I was optimistic, or I was like hopeful for it, right? Because I was like, oh, maybe it's just like in this world, like
the first scene. No, it's like the whole
dingy underworld, kids working in mines.
Because it's not gray. Because there is some really good pop of color now and then.
But then it's like, yeah, it just doesn't.
It's just dark. It's just very low contrast, low brightness, which is like a double whammy. Because at least if it was high contrast, that would mean that some parts are really, really bright.
Yeah.
But it's all low contrast, so it's like very dull looking. And
is that on purpose?
I would have to assume. I would have to assume.
I don't know.
Anyway, so I knew this existed. I saw it, thought it was fine, have not really thought about it much, nor touched it until this time. So this is now more than 6 years later.
Mm-hmm. Well, 4 months later, you know, you were busy.
I was busy starting a new relationship with another hairy person.
with a I don't know, a Wookiee.
You're like my Chewbacca, and I'm your Han Solo. Do you want to hear some background on this movie? Because this is the most interesting part of the movie. Is the background on this?
Okay.
And I know you do not know this story, so don't read ahead while I'm talking.
I didn't do anything.
You've been known to peek.
Just do it.
Okay.
Just do it.
So, in terms of like the development of this, you know, there's always been an interest or fascination with, especially even in like the old canon, with like filling in the backstory of Han Solo.
Of course.
Right? But that was always like books or comics or whatever, but there was an attempt for him to show up in the prequel. So and I think we talked about this when we talked about Revenge of the Sith. So a first attempt at an appearance of Han Solo as a child was present during the pre-production of Revenge of the Sith in 2002, showing an early draft of a young Solo that takes part in the Battle on Kashyyyk. Later, a planned live-action TV series developed by Star Wars creator George Lucas, titled Star Wars Underworld, which we mentioned before, would have depicted Han Solo's first meeting with Chewbacca and his winning the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian. So fast forward in 2012, about 3 weeks before Lucasfilm became a Disney property, Lawrence Kasdan had a meeting with Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy about relaunching the franchise and was presented with 9 film ideas, devised and sketched by Lucas himself, which include the new sequel trilogy and various spin-offs. However, Kasdan wasn't sure if he wanted to make more movies, even though the story about Han Solo was the one that inspired him the most, so Lucas commissioned him to write the screenplay. Because, of course, Lawrence Kasdan is a director as well. So I think he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do that, but I would be interested in doing writing. After Lucas sold his company to Disney in 2012, Kasdan was hired to help finish the script for The Force Awakens, leaving his son Jonathan Kasdan in charge of writing Solo until his return.
Oh.
So it seemed like Kasdan was really brought on to do this movie. But then, as we talked about with The Force Awakens, Michael Arndt wrote an early draft or treatment and was like, I need like 2 or 3 more years to really get this script in a good place. And they were like, no, we're releasing the movie in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So he left, and then J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan teamed up to kind of like take what Arndt had done and kind of like put it all together. So I guess he was like kind of like, all right, hold my beer, I'll be back, hold down the fort, son. In July, Lucasfilm announced that an anthology film focusing on, quote, how a young Han Solo became the smuggler, thief, and scoundrel whom Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi first encountered in the cantina at Mos Eisley, end quote, would be released on May 25th, 2018. The film was supposed to be released after The Force Awakens, but the temporary departure of Kasdan led to the development of the spin-off Rogue One first. So, I remember when I don't know if it was. I don't think it was after The Force Awakens, because I feel like it would have been not enough time in between. But I remember they were like, in addition to making episode 7, 8, 9, whatever, we're gonna do all these spin-offs. So they announced Rogue One. They announced this Han Solo movie. They also had announced, I believe it was supposed to be like a Boba Fett movie. With a director named Josh Trank, who had done a couple indie films and was kind of like an up-and-coming indie turned franchise director, and then he directed the 2015 Fantastic Four movie with Miles Teller and what's her name? Not Rooney Mara, Kate Mara, her sister, Michael B. Jordan. Right?
Oh yes, Michael.
That was considered not only one of the worst superhero movies of all time, but one of the worst movies of all time. And then Josh Trank got into trouble because when it got bad reviews, he basically went on like a Twitter rant, basically being like, my version of the movie was great, but 20th Century Fox like completely destroyed it and like forced me to do reshoots and like took away editing control from blah blah blah. That's kind of a faux pas in Hollywood to like publicly, like, especially like not like decades later, like for a tell-all, but like the movie like just came out and you're publicly complaining. So his career basically imploded. I kind of feel bad for the guy because now he has no, like, he was literally, like, supposed to direct a Star Wars movie. Though, as we saw with Star Wars, all these projects got announced and then canceled. So, for who knows if it would have even happened.
Yeah.
But I guess we kind of got that with The Mandalorian because The Mandalorian's basically just Boba Fett. But they wanted to seem like they weren't just doing Boba Fett. So they just made him everything like Boba Fett, except he's not Boba Fett. The project was to be directed. Directed by. What? Do I have a typo here? The project was to be directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Who? Where's Ron? Shouldn't that say Ron Howard?
What? Where are you?
I'm looking under the development. Right before casting, it says the project was to be directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Shouldn't that be Ron Howard?
Oh.
Shouldn't that be Ron Howard? I don't know. They were the guys who did the 21 Jump Street movies.
Okay.
They did what was it? The Lego Movie.
Oh, the Lego Movie.
Right? So I think that they'd be really good at doing a Star Wars movie. But I don't know, this must be a typo. I don't know. Let's just keep going. In terms of the casting, this was like a really big kind of thing, like who's gonna play the young Han Solo, right?
Yes.
In January 2016, a list of actors was revealed, as a short list for the role of young Han Solo, including Miles Teller, Ansel Elgort, Dave Franco, Jack Rayner, Scott Eastwood, Logan Lerman, Emery Cohen, and Blake Jenner. In May 2016, Alden Ehrenreich, who is also part of that cohort, was reported to have been cast as the young Han Solo. Christopher Miller, who's called casting the role, quote, one of the hardest casting challenges of all time, end quote, adding that they saw, quote, over 3,000 people for the part. Other actors to audition for the role included Chandler Riggs, Rami Malek, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Tom Felton, Nick Robinson, Colton Haynes, Joshua Sassy, Ed Westwick, Glenn Powell, and Charlie Cox. So again, it was like a who's who. Like every young actor who was tall, brunette, and had maybe a passing resemblance to Harrison Ford, they were considered.
Oh, wow.
In terms of the filming, on June 20th, 2017, citing quote-unquote creative differences, Lucasfilm announced that the directors Lord and Miller had left the project with a new director, quote, to be announced soon. I'm going to stop here for a second. This was not in development. They had already shot half the movie.
Oh.
I remember when this happened.
What?
This was like on, not just like film newspapers and like websites. This was like one of the first, like if you watched the Today Show that day. What? This is unheard of in Hollywood history. Of a movie of this high profile.
Okay.
Lord and the two directors.
What?
Left, quote unquote left, but were essentially fired over creative differences. It was reported that the directors were fired after Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan disagreed with their shooting style. Lord and Miller believed they were hired to make a comedy film. But I think comedy, in the sense the way like Lego Movie and the 21 Jump Street movies are comedies, but also like they still have like heart to them.
I know, yeah.
They believed they were hired to make a comedy film, while Lucasfilm was looking for the duo only to add, quote, a comedic touch, end quote. Lucasfilm also felt that directors were encouraging too much improvisation from the actors, which of course is like a big thing that they would do like on 21 Jump Street, where they'll just like film different versions of the scenes, just like just improving whatever. Lucasfilm also felt the directors were encouraging too much improvisation from the actors, which was believed to be, quote, shifting the story off course, end quote, from the cast and script. Now, you can obviously see a power struggle here, because you have on one hand Lord and Miller, who are well-respected directors, but they're still newcomers to this. Because by this point, again, they'd only really been on the scene. Oh, they also did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Ooh, Cloudy
right?
with a Chance of Meatballs.
But on the other hand, you have Lawrence Kasdan, who again is like Star Wars and Lucasfilm royalty. So I think what was probably happening is that Lawrence Kasdan was like, they're changing on my script. Kathleen, do something.
Oh my gosh.
To appease Kasdan, who was unhappy with the scenes not being filmed, quote, word for word, end quote, Lord and Miller shot several takes exactly as written, then shot additional takes. Lord and Miller refused to compromise on certain scenes, such as filming a scene from fewer angles than Lucasfilm expected, thereby reducing the options available in editing. Because they were probably like, let's shoot it with a vision, as opposed to just filming a bunch of... instead of filming 12 angles that are really generic looking, so that way we just can decide what we want to do in the editing room. Let's like storyboard it in our head.
Yeah.
So it actually feels like intentional.
Of course.
I guess Lucasfilm wasn't happy about that because again, they want to be able to have that. It's like almost like filmmaking by committee. They want to make sure they have options so that they can like do whatever they want later because they don't have like a vision.
But that's so weird.
The duo were also unhappy when Lawrence Kasdan was brought to the London set, feeling he became a quote-unquote shadow director. Kind of like we talked about with Revenge of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi? When it was nominally directed by like that other dude. But George Lucas was like on set every day. And he said it was like, quote, directing King Lear with Shakespeare in the other room.
Yeah.
The decision to remove Lord and Miller was made after a short hiatus in filming taken to review the footage so far. I'd like to stop here and just say something. And it's what I've talked about, I think, every episode we've done about any of the Disney Star Wars films. Mm-hmm. I hate making this critique, because then when I make this critique, people think I'm part of a certain group of people. And I'm not.
Okay.
Right?
Where's this going?
Well, I'm going to criticize Kathleen Kennedy, but it's not because I'm sexist and think she made Star Wars woke. I don't think either of those things.
Okay.
But what I have said is that her crime, her sin, is complete feckless executive leadership in terms of a creative vision for this. Mm-hmm. Either have a vision or get out of the way.
Is she supposed to though? Like
no, that's what she said. Get out of the way.
Executive person, yeah.
Get out of the way then. In this example here, of all the things, the decisions made with the sequel, the fact there was no plans for the trilogy, the fact that literally today, this week, they announced a new Star Wars trilogy.
Oh.
Who knows if it'll actually get made, because I think the running list is like over a dozen projects that have been announced that have not come out, either because they were canceled, or some of them, worse, have just never been canceled. They're just like, oh yeah, it still might happen. And it's like, this was announced like a decade ago. What do you mean this could still happen? All of these things contribute to my thesis here about Kathleen Kennedy. But this whole situation is the quintessential example of they hired a very visionary. I'm not saying visionary in like the very like flowery term. I just mean like they are directors with a vision. Like, they are not just, like, hired guns you bring in.
They have, like, a style.
They have a style, exactly. So, if you didn't want rock music at your wedding, why did you hire a rock band?
Yeah.
And try to get them to do, like, love ballads? Like,
I mean, like, obviously we don't know, but, like, at least what it sounds like is, like, they were hired and they were doing what they do. And
then they were like, wait. And we didn't know you were going to do that. It's like, why?
Isn't that why you hired us? Like,
precisely.
Like, didn't you read our resume?
Yeah. Now, look, I don't know if this is probably...
Maybe they were butts. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing is, like, maybe this is a reductive way of looking at it, but since it's a counterfactual, we'll probably never know unless, like, they release the footage one day, like, decades later. Mm-hmm. If it was just going to be 21 Jump Street, but Star Wars, that does feel strange. But then it's your job as the executive. Your role is to be the conductor.
But after the last one, though, really, like after the first two movies of the
sequel trilogy,
yeah,
but those still were fairly dramatic at their core, with like a lot of like haphazard comedy thrown in. If this was 21 Jump Street but with Han Solo and Chewbacca, I could see the concern, but then it's your job as the executive of this creative company to be the conductor and or the coach. It's like it's your job to set the terms.
Are people that involved? Like,
depends.
I don't know how like a corporate structure works. Like,
well, I mean, every company is different, but theoretically, the CEO of Lucasfilm is somewhat responsible for the ultimate quality and outcome of the films. So it's your job to maybe guide and kind of like, okay, here's what Lawrence Kasdan wants, here's what Lord and Miller want. How can we, not me combining it, but how can these three parties, me, him, and him, or him and them, come together and synthesize our visions? It sounds like you had everyone in silos. Like, Kasdan wrote the script, Kasdan and Kasdan wrote the script, and then Lord Miller showed up to shoot it. And no one was, like, communicating. So, this whole situation completely exemplifies why Kathleen Kennedy is one of the worst creative executives that, like, in recent Hollywood memory, if not Hollywood history.
Oh my god.
Just in terms of, like, it's so easy. It's Star Wars. Just make it.
I think that's why.
It's like you're getting in your own. It's like
that's
you're,
why. Yeah.
Because it's not. Because I'm sure there's been worse creative executives, but like with the hand you were dealt, you fumbled it so badly. It's like you tripped over your own feet. It feels like.
And the hell of it trips underwater.
So I don't know if this movie would have been better or worse, but
It feels like it would fit, right? Like if you were to get those guys to do anything, like a 21 Jump Street type, like the newer ones, right? Not the older ones, or both.
What?
Lord and the other guy.
Yeah, like the Channing Tatum, Jonah Hill movies.
Okay,
not the show from the 80s.
Not the okay.
No.
Anyways, if you were to do that, like this seems like the duo to do it. You know, like it may be weird, but it's like Chewie and Han. Like, come on, like
yeah,
you know,
like there's an element of comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, just the two of them together. But
and again, like they don't miss. Like every time I've watched stuff, and they can handle. Like I don't think they directed it, but they were also writers on the Spider-Verse movies. Like they're able to do stuff that's both funny, but also like thematically cohesive and rich.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's ultimately it's a counterfactual. We'll never know. Huh?
Everything's not cool.
Well, notably, they did not direct that one. I think they were just like producers, or they maybe helped write it.
Oh my frick.
So anyway, so now what do you do? But anyway, the point is that not only
What do you do?
the fact that they had filmed a lot of it. I forget the exact percentage. It was not all of it, but it was not just like a couple days. Like this, they were into it.
That's wild.
The fact that and I remember I remember even my dad asking me about it. Like it was a huge story because it's unheard of. It's unheard of. So then what do you do? Okay, it's like you've done. Like, where are you gonna go now? And again, this was what did we say? June 2017. The movie's coming out in less than a year. Right? So where do you go now? So it was then reported that Ron Howard, who had previously collaborated with Lucas as an actor in American Graffiti and then as the director of Willow in 1988, it was reported that he was a frontrunner to step in as director. Notably, and I think we talked about this, Howard had turned down an offer to direct The Phantom Menace. Originally, George Lucas was not planning on directing it. He had asked Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis and Ron Howard.
Busy working on Grinch.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Well, this was like years before that, but
Aren't they both 99?
that came out in 2000, and I would imagine
2000, yeah. I think
Phantom Menace came out in 99.
Yeah.
Well, two things. One, The Grinch, I'm pretty sure, came out late 2000, and Phantom Menace came out mid-1999, so it was about 18 months difference, number one. Number two, I imagine the amount of time you would have to devote to Phantom Menace was more years than The Grinch. So I don't think The Grinch was even close to being anywhere near. Like, I don't think he turned this down to do The Grinch.
Well, I'd like to thank him. Because I think Grinch was the first movie I saw in theaters.
I think you told me that, yes.
Yeah.
Would you say The Grinch has contributed more to culture and society than The Phantom Menace? The live-action Grinch, not just The Grinch idea.
The live-action Grinch, that's a big one. That's a kicker.
We do quote it incessantly all year.
All year.
And now it's starting to get Christmassy. It's Christmas time. But anyway, so Lucas had offered the job to those three guys, and they had all turned it down. I think this was before a script was written, so I don't think they were like, "Yikes, the script isn't good." I think they were just like, the pressure would just be too great.
Yeah, just like, whew.
Especially someone like Ron Howard, who, like, of the three, is definitely like, it feels weird calling him the least successful. Mm-hmm. But at least Spielberg, like, is used to taking on, like, giant projects. Mm-hmm. And Zemeckis, of course, had done Forrest Gump and Back to the Future. Whereas Ron Howard, like, had made a lot of well-received movies, but nothing to the scale of something like a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's kind of a weird now full circle thing that here he is, like, basically 20 plus years later, coming back. Mm-hmm. Or not coming back, but actually now accepting it. So,
I'm here.
Kasdan was also considered, right? Because of course it's like, well, you have this guy here, he's intimately involved with the project, he's a director too. But they couldn't do that because the Directors Guild of America rules state that a replacement for a director may not be someone already involved with the production.
Oh.
And I think because Lord Miller were part of the DGA, like union rules, like it wouldn't be allowed. So I guess to avoid situations like this where like the writer or like pushes them out and takes over.
But that makes sense though because he like it's like he wrote it, right?
I know. I think the rule is there to prevent it gives directors a little more job security because it's like, okay, you can replace me, but it's gonna be a lot harder for you. Yeah. Because you have to like find someone external who's not already involved in the project.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it both makes sense. That's why I'm like. Ugh.
2 days later, it was announced that Howard would take over directing for the remaining 3.5 weeks of scheduled principal photography, as well as the scheduled 5 weeks of reshoots. Howard wrote, quote, "I'm beyond grateful to add my voice to the Star Wars universe. I hope to honor the great work already done and help deliver on the promise of a Han Solo film," end quote. So basically the reshoots just ended up becoming principal photography.
So he was only director for 2 months.
Well, no, because I'm sure he was involved in the editing. And again, that's like a normal amount of time for a production when you include these 5 weeks of reshoots. Like doing it 2 months. Yeah. But the thing is that those extra 5 weeks were for reshoots. Mm-hmm. But now it's like there's no time for reshoots. Mm-hmm. This whole production is now a reshoot.
They didn't want to use anything?
I believe the metric is, well, I'll get to that in just a second. Lucas, who was Howard's friend, mentor, collaborator, made a surprise visit to the set to encourage Howard on his first day of shooting. Intended as a short meeting, Lucas spent the whole day with the crew. While Lucas had not meant to interfere, at some point he forgot and asked, "Why doesn't Han just do this?" End quote. And Howard included his suggestion. So I guess George Lucas shows up and he's just like, just coming up with ideas like, well, here's Han Solo. Here's why Han Solo worked. In March, so we could possibly say this is the Star Wars movie by default of the Disney movies that has the most George Lucas involvement. Because of one day he showed up and suggested something that Han does.
Intended as a short meeting, Lucas spent the whole day with the crew. How does that happen?
Which is weird because Lucas famously doesn't like being on set. How does that happen? But I guess maybe he doesn't mind it when he's not the director. He could just like goof around.
He's just holding court.
In March of 2018, so this is like 2 months before the movie came out, after it was reported, Howard had reshot around 70% of the film. I would imagine the only stuff they kept were non-dialogue parts. Like if it was like a shot of an action, like a jumping over a table. Yeah. Like they might not need to redo that. Mm-hmm. And perhaps maybe that's why it's graded so poorly, because like maybe to hide the fact that some footage was shot on different days and like because like especially if it's on a set, like the value of shooting a film on a production set is that you can control the conditions, so like they're repeatable. And that being said, it's impossible to replicate something exactly. That's why you want to get it right the first time you do it. So maybe that's why it was graded so dark to kind of hide. No, I'm saying on a production set. I'm just saying that you can never make it look exactly the same if you film it 6 weeks after.
Oh, no.
So after it was announced that Howard had reshot around 70% of the film, it was announced that Lord Miller would not challenge for the director credit and instead agreed to executive producer credits. Because I think contractually and by the union rules, like if a certain percentage of footage they shot was still in the movie, they would have to be credited as, like it would say directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and then a next line, and Ron Howard. Yeah. But I guess enough of it they basically had swapped it that they were just like, okay, we're not going to pick this fight. So what did we think? Because I have a bold statement, but I want to hear what you think. Oh. Well, that's not true. It's not really that bold.
What's your bold statement?
As a Star Wars movie, and as a prequel to a character we already know, as just like a movie, I thought it was actually kind of fun.
Okay.
I liked it a lot more than I did when I first saw it.
I'm glad. Okay, we're on the same page.
Right?
I was thinking.
It's not amazing, but I was like, there's like some good stuff here.
Yeah.
And it's still funny, kind of.
Yeah.
Even though you took out the Lord and Miller stuff. So I don't know.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too, because I was like, oh, I actually kind of like enjoy this. Like, I can't really see it, but like, you know, I can.
It's a good audio drama.
I get it, yeah. You know, but yeah, as a Star Wars film, like it creates questions, and it's a little dubious, but like just as a film, I mean, it's still pretty thin, but like
it's very conventional. No doubt
it's
about
enjoyable, you know.
It's like what I talk about. It's a conventional story told with pizzazz.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, because there's like, I guess we'll talk about it later, but it doesn't really do much like emotional like legwork, and so things happen and it makes sense, but like it doesn't feel like it.
It feels like a TV movie.
If that makes
in terms
sense.
of like the emotional impact. Like not everything has to be like this like emotional roller coaster, but it feels kind of just like an episode of a TV show.
Yeah.
Right? In the sense of just or like a couple episodes, like an arc. It doesn't feel like this is like a movie. This is like a full beginning, middle, end. I mean, it has a beginning, middle, and end, but like it just doesn't feel like I can walk away like I feel very satisfied now.
Cuz it's like
kind of like okay, that was fun.
Yeah, it's like okay, I see point A to point B, but like was there enough like in between point A and point B like to make that do you see what I'm saying? Like like they didn't seem very friendly until all of a sudden at the end, and then they were like, "Hey, on, buddy," blah blah blah. You know, like like Lando and Han, or like or just like with Val, right? She just straight up dies, or like and the little worm.
Val?
Exactly. Who's Val?
Wait, who's Val?
The black lady. What's his name?
Oh, his woman.
What's his name?
Tobias Beckett.
Yes, Beckett's
Which
lady.
is, I'm sorry, the most un-Star Wars-y name ever. Like, occasionally we'll have, like, a regular person name for, like, their first name, but then their last name will be, like, a goobly-goo.
Yeah.
Tobias Beckett.
Oh, what's the... Oh, and Rio. Rio and Val.
I like Rio. Voiced by Jon Favreau.
Yes, he was a little worm guy. So, it's just, like, Rio dies, and you're like, oh, shit. And then Val dies, and you're like, oh, shit. And it's like, wait, we don't really know these guys.
Woody Harrelson didn't
He doesn't seem too broken up about it either. Yeah. He's just like, no, Val, don't do it. Okay, well.
Anyway.
Next.
Because this is like, it's light. It's very light and frothy.
It's
like,
very
it's just...
light. And even, I think that's just like with everything. Because even with like Han and Kira, right? Like, they do it, right?
They do.
Well, I don't know if they do it, but they you know, the actors do it, right? They're into the deep, passionate kiss, the you know, the acting, the whatnot.
Probably our steamiest kiss in a Star Wars film.
Maybe, but like
this feels like the most un-Star Wars movie.
We don't know anything about them.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, that's great. They're super in love.
Why?
How? When? And then also like 3 years later, like
yeah,
he joined the army. What?
Yeah,
there's just some strange things going on here, but it was entertaining. I will say. Mm-hmm. It did take me a while to get into it though, because like you can tell. Oh, what's that guy's name? I looked it up. Alden.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah, Alden is very clearly doing his best Harrison Ford impression, and not in a very natural way. So there was that, and it kind of just reminded me of the fan movie of Indiana Jones.
I think I did write down it kind of feels like a
thought they were like the same guy.
A fan film at times, like
It seemed like the same guy at some point. They kind of looked like him too, like each other too. I was like, wait a minute. So that was a little rough. I don't know. That must have been maybe part of the 30% that was beforehand or something. I don't know. Hopefully, because in the beginning of the film, it was weird. But then, as it went on, it was like, okay, this guy is Han. Okay.
Well, I don't know if what I'm gonna say disagrees with you, but it's maybe looking at it from a different way. Is like, I don't even know if he's doing a Han Solo like impression or like characterization. Because one of my issues with the movie was like,
the cadence,
he doesn't feel like Han Solo.
I know.
But here's the thing: is like, I'm not saying that in a superficial sense, but more like, how do I put this? Like, there's a couple different ways you could go with this, right? Because you're making a movie, a prequel, about a character we know very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
So writing wise and acting wise, like you're presented with a couple problems that have multiple solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the acting, because that's what we're talking about, you can either go full on, like embodiment of that character. Option 2 is you completely do something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Third is you try to do this very easier said than done thing of like, well, he's gonna be different, but you can see that you can see how he'll become this other person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they really did either of those 3.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
maybe that's why, because it is a very,
again, it's like, if you forget this is a Star Wars movie, I think his performance is like quite good.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh wait, this is a character I know.
Like, you remember it's supposed to be Harrison Ford, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and like, I guess obviously people change over time, because I guess this takes place maybe like 13-ish years before the original film when we first see Han Solo. Mm-hmm. But this film has,
is that the timeline?
Roughly.
I don't know.
But this film suffers from a lot of prequelitis. Mm-hmm. Something the prequel trilogy, despite being the most famous prequels in the history of fiction, they did not suffer from prequelitis. And prequelitis is a host of symptoms, but what I'll kind of broadly characterize it as an inherent handicap that, like, from the jump you have certain restrictions on you by being a prequel, right? And some writers use that really, like, they use those limitations to do something interesting. Mm-hmm. Other writers kind of miss the mark, and I think here they missed the mark in the sense of, like, he goes through this character arc in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess my question is, like, when we first see him, he's like a very amoral, like,
is he? I feel like he's,
in the original film, he's like, I don't give a shit about the rebellion.
In the original, okay, not in this, okay.
No, the original film is in the original film.
No, I thought you said the beginning.
No, the original film when we first meet him, right? Kind of out for himself, like a scoundrel, right?
Yeah.
And his whole arc in the original trilogy is him, like, learning to be more selfless and, like, embracing a cause that, like, there's not going to be much material gain for you, but it's more, there are things more important.
Yeah.
This movie kind of gives him, like, a similar arc. Mm. Or at least by the end of this movie, it looks like he's learned a little bit of compassion, like, because here's the thing. They were not going to do a Godfather-esque story of a character going down the wrong path. Mm-hmm. This was the assignment was a fun summer blockbuster. So, but because of prequelitis, you basically have to give your character some kind of arc that basically is undone off screen by the time we see him in the original films.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not that it's not that it's a huge contradiction, but it's just kind of like, it doesn't feel like, okay, this feels like he's on the path to becoming the character we know. Mm-hmm. Because he seems like pretty, like, he seems like he has a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah.
So it's like, well what happens between this and the next one?
Well, that's the thing, is that, like, it's, like, a good movie, but as, like, a Han story, or, like, as the story of how Han became
As, like,
Han,
a backstory of a character we know
like,
very well.
It's not good, or, like, fulfilling, or, like, it doesn't make sense, right? Well, first off, there's the whole dice situation, which...
I told you last time, they're trying to make it a thing. It never been a thing.
It doesn't make any sense, though, because there's no reason for it, and there's no practicality of it with his character. So, if something happened, we should have seen that something happened, and that's why, they talked about not having relationships with their fathers. Was it from his father? Who the fuck knows? Because it's just there. And then, also...
Like, it would make sense if those were the dice he won the Millennium Falcon with. But then we find out, like, the game, it's like a card game. It's not like a dice game.
Yes, that's good, too. Or, and also, because he won the Millennium Falcon in a card game, and, like, the way that things happen in Star Wars, like, Han Solo as a person, as a character, does not have, like, the luxury, like, or financial, like, emotional bandwidth to, like, have something so small like that. Like, oh, we're on the run from Darth Vader. Hold on, I gotta go grab my dice before he like, it's like we're, or like, just what I'm saying. It's just something too small to be to have too much importance in such a scuffian lifestyle. Like when you're on the I don't know the word ruffian, but scuffy scoundrel.
A moof milker.
But do you see what I'm saying? It's just like too small to have too much importance in the kind of lifestyle that he has, or that we know he has. But then also, it doesn't really make any sense, like, it doesn't tell us how he got to who he is as we know him.
Because here's the thing: as a prequel, you're back to this.
Because he's not bad. Like like they try to make it seem like verbally make it seem like he's kind of like an anti-hero
in the
or something.
Original films.
No, in here, because he
because he ends up doing the right thing in this movie.
He's like, oh, what does he say? He says something. Oh, I don't know. He says something, but it's like, oh, something about bad decisions or whatever. And I was like. Did you you didn't make any bad decisions? Like,
that's right. Yeah.
You very.
Oh, because he was like, I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, he was like, I'm a terrible person.
Well, you're not seeing you do one bad thing.
It was like, you've done nothing but good things, and the only reason you do things is for other people. Like,
so that's what I'm saying.
You're trying to get Kira out of this like hellhole, and it's like you're trying.
You're 100% right. Because even when he's being self-interested, it still helps someone else. Like if he's being self-interested because he's like, I want to get enough money to like take Kira away, like even though it's self-interested, he's still helping somebody.
Or well, that's the other thing too, is that like he kind of like, we know him as someone like having to learn to play well with others, right? But it's like that seems like all that he does, right? He's like, oh, these are my good friends, they're gonna help us off this, and like he's like vying and like trying to let him be a part of their little gang or their like little mission or whatever, right? So it's like, it's not him rejecting people. It's like him always like asking people, right? Whereas like later on, we know that he's like someone to reject. And so it's like, okay, come on, Han, like you can do it, blah, blah, blah. So like where does that fall off? Like,
I believe Disney's plan, had this been successful, was to make like a whole trilogy of just these movies with Han Solo. So maybe this was something they were planning down the road, but that's the danger of building your story around the hope you'll have a trilogy, and then it does horribly at the box office. Because
do people not understand?
Because I wonder if maybe where they were going to take the story is that he suffers some great, like basically by the end of this trilogy, he's become hardened.
Which I thought was going to happen with Kira.
But like, you needed to maybe do that here, but they didn't want to do that. Because basically, they did a calculation and went, if we do that here, then we definitely can't do a trilogy. So we want to leave that door open. Well, because if he basically becomes the character we already know, then there's no more story to tell that's really interesting because he's already become the character. Like, he's not going to go through any more character development until the next time we see him. But in retrospect, because this ended up only being a single film, this film should have been... So the plot needed to put Han Solo through situations that harden him emotionally and morally. Mm-hmm. But we just don't get that here.
Which I totally thought was what was gonna happen because, right? I'm like, Kira, who the hell is Kira? Oh, she's gonna die. And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah, she becomes a new criminal kingpin or queenpin.
Apparently. But I'm like, okay, so obviously he's gonna like be hardened by that or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you know, that doesn't really happen because I don't know.
Yeah.
And seem too broken up about it. And there's a lot of vague languaging. I don't know if it's like my autistic brain or something, but like the language was like very vague and I couldn't tell if people were joking or not, or lying or not.
That might just be your autism.
Okay. Because like their reunion didn't seem very reunion-y.
No, that was strange. I did notice because the whole point of that scene is that he's super excited to see her, but she's not excited to see him.
I know.
I think it's like the idea, but like the scene doesn't come off like a conflict between like wanting it and not wanting it. It comes off just like that feels like a scene. That's the only scene in the movie that feels like they took the Lord Miller version and the Ron Howard version and like smushed them together. Because at a certain point, the tone of the scene shifts completely, and like Han's all calm, cool, and collected, but not like he's trying to be to match her freak, if you will. It just feels like it was like they filmed a different version of the scene and gave the actors different direction.
Well, there's that, and then also like there was always like like you don't know the bad things I've done, or you don't know what she's done, blah blah blah. I'm like, the fuck has she done? She killed the sand people? Like, what the hell?
That's great. Well, in the Star Wars universe, no one cares about that.
I mean, like, what's going on here?
And like, it's fine to have those kind of lines, but then you need to pay it off.
They never say anything.
They never pay it off, honey. And I'm left unpaid.
And so that's why I think it's kind of strange that she kind of like takes over at the end. Like, it's like, what? Were these always her intentions? Like, was she always looking to? I'm confused. But then also with like Woody too, like every time he said something or he like closed out a conversation, I thought he was lying. But then turns out that was the next thing that we were gonna do. I was like, wait, what?
Woody,
like, cause they were like, I forgot. They were talking to the evil guy, Drayden, and they were like, oh, well, okay, well, we can go get the coaxium, but it's going to be
coaxium!
But it's going to be, like, unrefined, so it's going to be, like, you know, like, uncontrollable or whatever.
Unstable.
Yeah, unstable. And they're like, well, we could go to,
it seems like they're bullshit.
Stepharon. And I was like, oh, is that like a secret place? Like, is that even a real place? Like, I don't even know. Are they just gonna like send them to a deserted place and like, you know, go somewhere else? Turns out they actually go. And then he's like, okay, I'll see you next time, kid. I'm gonna go do a job for the Hutts. And then I was like, oh, ha ha ha. And then
he came back.
Well, yes. I was so surprised. But no, then when Han and Chewie are leaving, he's like, let's go to Tatooine. Like, I heard there's a job out there. I'm like, what, are you going to trust the words that the guy who just
betrayed you?
He just betrayed you. Are you going to follow those? Like, their word? Okay. Okay. Interesting.
But again, like, that's another, like, prequel-itis moment of, like, we're going to go do this thing. Probably won't be important. But as the audience, we're like,
because it's the way that he delivers it, too.
He's all, Alden Ehrenreich ate that shit up. He was like, yeah, that's right. I'm fucking Han Solo.
So it's just a little silly at times, but I had fun. It wasn't.
Yeah. I thought the actors were really good. Like you said, like they were committing.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson's actually a really great.
He's funny.
He does a good job.
He's a vegan, you know.
What? He is? That's crazy.
I don't know where I learned that, but I always think about that because I think of him in like Hunger Games, and so I'm like,
no wonder he's hungry.
I'm like, does he have
enough protein?
Does he have enough energy?
Emilia Clarke, I think, for the material not being great,
gorgeous
for her, just visual, just like she's just attractive. Yeah, she's stunning.
Well, yes, she's beautiful and, you know, good actress, whatever.
She is quite stunning in this. But you know what? This is an example of like a movie like you have to make your female character beautiful because you have to justify why Han's like obsessed with this bitch.
Yeah.
He's like I fumbled the bad bitch. But now you just got me thinking about how pretty Emilia Clarke is. That's not what I was trying to talk about.
I know, and this is like how she actually looks. She's not like Daenerys. Yeah.
No, but I think everyone is like committing here. I obviously to avoid riling up like the industry and like getting in trouble with your corporate overlords. I really am curious about how the actors felt about the director's switch. If they preferred how things were going before and were annoyed, or vice versa. Maybe they were like, "Thank God, I was tired." But clearly, if they were improvising, like if actors really weren't into it, they would. It would be very clear, like day one, and Lauren Miller would have to adjust. Clearly, you know. So clearly, I would assume there was some buy-in.
Yeah, I think they had fun.
And I like this. I liked the pairing of these different characters. Like it's almost like this little. So if there had been a trilogy, you could kind of see how this crew shrinks and shrinks, and that kind of maybe contributes to Han's hardening. So by the time you see them in the original, it's just him and Chewie, right? Like their little scheme to get the coaxium. Like I like it. It's kind of like a little heist movie. It's not again. It's nothing new.
Yeah.
But it's new for Star Wars. It's new in that sense, and it does feel like it has an identity. For better or for worse, distinct from the other Star Wars films.
Which, like, I think is, like, good and helpful, but also, like, hold on. Like, it is very simple and, like, kind of straightforward, but I think that they don't really take advantage of that all the way, and so, like, that's how you get, like... very like point A to point B story while also getting just like this very like light like these light characters as opposed to like having a like really simple story, right, of the, you know, getting out, getting coaxium, whatever, and then having it be with like a lot of emotional weight. There's not. Yeah.
There's some stuff in theory that is interesting here that I actually think is like actually quite good. Thematically. Or not so much thematically, but just like story beats. Like I like this idea of like Han and Kira having to like get reaccustomed to one another. It's like one of those things when you're like have someone who's like you're a really good friend with. And I'm sure you can relate to this because you moved around so much as a kid. Like, you move away. And then imagine if, like, suddenly you moved back.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't quite just, like, pick up where you left off, like, because you've both lived. Because, like, as humans, like, even the most empathetic of us, like, biologically, psychologically, physiologically, like, we're designed to see ourselves as, like, the main character of a story. And, like the old philosophical idea of, like, the only person I know for sure exists is myself. And because theoretically, everyone else could be just like a figment of my imagination on like a pure, just like philosophical level, right? Yeah. But we forget that other people are the main characters of their own story. So like again, it's like if you're apart for 3 years, they come back together. Like you both have lived 3 years. Like you are not drastically different people, but like new things have filled in, have contributed to who you are. If you are your past experiences. Then 3 years is a whole lot of time for new experiences to contribite to who you are.
Well, yeah, so
it's this interesting idea.
That's why I thought one of the first kind of Strange Things was that, right? So I thought that the separation would be a lot more dramatic or like impactful, and you know, kind of what, like, she was like being dragged off, right? And they were yelling like, "Get out of here," whatever, blah blah blah. I'll come back. You know, so it seems that way, but then it's like 3 years later, it's like, is this still his mission? Like, is this even on his mind? You know, like, or even on hers? Like, she's probably just like given up on you, like, you know.
Exactly.
So, some of the timing was strange. Like, if I don't know, I feel like it wouldn't have been such a big jump if it was such a big deal.
I think Kira is because she's like the newest kind of character, because obviously like Woody Harrelson's character is a new character, but he's basically just like a proto Han Solo essentially.
Yeah.
Kira feels like the most interesting part of the movie in terms of like the potential of the character, because she's a different kind of character and her circumstances are different. And like, I think where the film falls short a little is understanding her more, or rather not understanding her more, and not quite understanding her motivation. So like, I really like this story beat of her, this book ending of the movie where in the beginning they're like basically like joined at the hip and they're separated by circumstance. And at the end she has every reason to go with him, but she chooses not to. That's really interesting character stuff. But where it falls short is I'm like, well, why does she do that? Does she resent Han for having been able to escape?
Which I
is
thought.
she afraid of being on the run? Or does she have a lust for power and sees this as an open, like, we never quite get an understanding, and that would really add to these ideas of how people change over time.
Yeah.
That, and if she had become, because in the beginning she's like very young, even though they're still like older, like she feels very like idealistic and naive, and that'd be interesting if she had like this lust for power that has been forced upon her because of her circumstances. It's almost like kill or be killed. She then sees that as an opportunity and is willing to sacrifice this interpersonal relationship. But we don't ever understand
I guess
her motivation.
so, like, thinking back on, like, I think maybe that's what we should have taken away from that, because, like, everyone's always talking about her brand, and, like, but then, like, it never explicitly comes up, but then she does that, right?
Because you would think if she's been so horribly treated, she would want to leave immediately. So it's like, we need a little bit of detail here on, like, how does she feel about all this? And had Han not come, where would the rest of her life have gone?
Yeah.
Like I feel like we never get a true sense of that, which is a shame, because again, I think there's like a lot of fertile ground there. They just don't take it because this movie was so haphazardly. Because again, the assignment is very cynical and corporate, of like a Han Solo movie. At least with Rogue One, that's like, oh, like, that's something we never thought about, like how the rebels got the plans. It's a bunch of new characters and like a different side of the rebellion. This movie very much feels like we did some research and we realized people like Han Solo. So what if we made a movie about Han Solo?
But it's so strange though, because like I know this is like a small thing, but like the 3 years, okay, that's
really
no, I'm just saying as an
Love
example.
is eternal.
I know it shows dedication, but it does not show how it does not show why that dedication is there. It does not. It's not him crying alone at night and like, you know, like, shit, Kira, like, now I'm actually solo. I have no one. You were my family. Blah blah
the
blah.
relationship is very,
you know, like,
archetypal. Yeah. Where it's just like, okay, we get it immediately. Like, they're two young lovers, right?
Two happy people.
But it feels very shallow because like these are like, I don't know how old they're supposed to be, but like they're adults essentially. So maybe this would have been better if we had started and they were children, like children.
Yeah.
And then we have like a 10-year jump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe they couldn't do that because they knew they wanted like the meat of the story to take place 13 so years before the original films. and the prequel, like the Empire becomes the Empire 18 years before the original films. So like you can only go so far back until you're in Republic territory. but you still could have done it where it's during the Republic era.
Yeah.
Like maybe that would have worked better because then it would have explained why their relationship is so superficial. Mm-hmm. And then, it's almost like Past Lives. Remember the movie Past Lives? Where it's like they reconnect now as adults.
Yes.
And it's like this weird thing because again they've lived so much life. Mm-hmm. But actually Past Lives wouldn't be a good example because like they kind of semi keep in contact in that movie. Mm-hmm. Like on and off over years.
Yeah.
Whereas like with this, like their children, they split up and Han has this like idea of her. Mm-hmm. We're talking about how much changes, not just over 10 years, like because it's just more than 3, but also like she has come of age. Like she has gone through like 12 to 22 is a lot different than 22 to 32 is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So maybe that would have helped justify how superficial their relationship was.
Or I don't think
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know that it was. That's what I'm saying is I don't think it was, or it's not supposed to. And then it becomes that way because of the circumstances, right? So it's like it's just we don't know, right? Like I think it's supposed to be deeper, but we don't know that. Like it seems more than just like a love at sometimes. Like it seems like family, right? And I think that plays along with like Han Solo and then like the hardness and whatnot.
Han what? Who are you I'm alone. Han
That was
Solo.
That was really silly.
That's very prequel. I was like, also, that's how he got his name. But I don't mind that as much as a lot of people did because it reminds me of like, because that's what they would do at Ellis Island. They would be like, so what was your profession? It'd be like, well, I was a baker. It's like, John Baker. You know what I mean? Like they would do that.
I know.
But it does feel narratively cheap because it's like...
It's just the way that it comes off.
It's done very like...
yeah. As opposed to, something else. But it seems more than it is a lot of times, right? Especially when they're in the beginning and he's like running away and it's like, oh, you're finally here. Like you took so long. Like, it's all like a little Orphan Annie type situation.
It's very Oliver Twist.
Little children working in the mind, but it's like,
or working for a bunch of little Cockney children working for some kind of like a criminal.
But it seems like more almost, right? Like she's not just like, oh, I like this girl, blah blah blah. Like they're like emotionally involved, right? And so it's like, okay, so what happened? But and then for me at least, I'm like, oh, he's just like an orphan and he's just working on the streets or whatever. And apparently he doesn't have a good relationship with his father. Is that because he's dead or he actually had parents? What was the situation there? And then they get separated, and so that could lead to the hardening, right? But then also something that I liked was or at least thought it was interesting and gave some color or context to was his introduction to Chewie, right? So it's like Kira is my family. I have lost my family. And then now he's meeting Chewie. They're at odds, but we know how they become, right? So it's
we know how it plays out.
So it's like, it's not
Were you expecting that?
No.
I knew it was coming, and I was like, I'm really curious. Like when they were like, "Oh, throw him to the beast," I thought I was curious if you were like, "Oh, the beast, that must be Chewbacca."
No.
As soon as he came, I was like, "Nice." When in the theater, I was like, "Okay, this is probably how they're introduced Chewbacca." But I'm glad that you didn't.
No, I was thinking of the big guy from the
Return of the
original
Jedi.
From
In Jabba's palace.
Yeah, like
the basement. When he gets dropped
whatever
down
he's
hole.
called. Yeah.
The Rancor.
The Rancor, yes. I was thinking the Rancor. But because then it shows like, oh, it's not just, oh, hey, he's my buddy, blah blah blah. It's like they both trust each other and are friends because they choose to, and they choose to trust each other, and like it's it's not just, hey, this is my buddy, right? Because it's like he lost his family, and so he's been introduced to this person, and, you know, they're at odds, but they eventually help each other, and then they're like, okay, well, you know, I guess we're close now, right? So then it's their friendship, I think it becomes a little bit more deepened, because it's like, it's not like they're just like, I don't know how to say it.
They're not just linked up and they kind of grew to like each other over time. Like
it's like Han, like there's like a mutual respect. Like Han will trust Chewie with his life because he knows that he can fucking break him in half like a twig, and he chooses not to, right? And he's chosen to help him before, and vice versa, right? And, you know, Chewie trusts Han fully because, you know, he's gotten him out of this shitty situation and came back, you know, whatever, helped him. So I think I liked that for their relationship. And I think it enhanced or gave weight to their relationship later on, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that
it's one of the few things that does color our understanding of later appearances of these characters.
Yeah.
The issue is that the film that's few and far between. That like on the whole, when I watch this movie, I'm like, I don't know how much this has enriched my understanding of Han Solo now having seen this film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like Chewie is like literally the only. Because even with Lando, that whole situation seems
wonderfully played by
strange.
Donald Glover.
He's good.
Absolutely doing a Billy D. Williams person, more so than Alden Ehrenreich is doing a Han Solo.
But it's so
but
natural.
It works really well. Like he's really good at it.
I don't know how he's like not.
He's able to do the voice.
He's not phased at all. He's like.
Because normally Donald Glover's like, like he's like a very like I don't know how to describe it.
High energy, attention.
He's doing his little captain's log.
Yeah.
Journaling.
But like, it's I liked his performance because it was just like so spot on, and like I don't know, I guess like the character of Lando's just like so cool, calm and collected, and he's like, oh, no problem, blah blah blah. But we do kind of see how like how do I say it? He's kind of bougie, and it's kind of like his hubris at times, right?
He has all the different outfits.
Yeah, but then that was also something. That was also something that, because like, so then they're.
What?
So what is her name? L3.
The woke droid.
So was that true about what she said about Lando? No, that he liked her.
I guess so, maybe.
Or was it just because they're...
Yes, I think Donald Glover came out and said Lando is pansexual.
Okay, but then why didn't he put up more of a fight, or why did he put it up in general once she became part of the ship? Why would you put the Millennium Falcon in...
Falcon?
Yeah, the Millennium Falcon in as...
Millennium
Falcon!
Okay, well, you were saying Millennium Falcon.
Whatever. Your ship, in a card game, if your ex-robot lover is now, like, the central hub of it.
Well, so theoretically, it's not like her consciousness is in it. It's just, like, all of her, like, navigational stuff.
I know, but still.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying?
I will say this. All I know, the thing about this is that she's woke.
She is very annoying.
Which look. So here's the thing. Again, I'm as woke as they come, personally. So I'm not against anything she's saying, but it feels like a parody of someone who's really conservative would write of like someone who is woke. Mm-hmm. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it feels very like annoying and grating.
Yeah. It's like her whole personality.
Like when he's like, "Oh, do you want anything?" She's like droid rights,
equal rights,
and he's just like, "I just asked you if you wanted it."
I just wanted to know if you wanted coffee or something.
Yeah, like it's like that where it's like very like.
It's like, what do you expect me to do? I'm a black man in space. What do you want from me?
It's a very post-Trump 2016 kind of like white lib resistance thing, as opposed to like the people doing like the real hard work. Do you know what I mean? Like
No, I know what
I mean, and we're recording this. But this actually comes out not that because listeners, we're very behind. We used to do this like months in advance. We're literally doing this like less than a week before this airs. But so by the time you're listening to this, it's not that far off. Trump has been reelected as president.
Oh my.
So we're starting to see some of the same stuff that happened in like 2016. Like the people who had the privilege to not care about stuff now care because like, oh, now it's going to affect them.
Yeah.
But it's not like things suddenly got worse. Like things have always been really bad. It's just like now it's going to affect you as like a privileged person. Precisely. And I include myself in this.
Precisely.
Right? This kind of feels like that embodiment. Like it's 20. It feels like the encapsulation of, and no shade to Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
No, she's
but
fantastic.
it encapsulates that kind of like white feminism. Like it's kind of like you only care now because like you didn't care when black women were really struggling. And by you, I don't mean Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I just mean this character kind of encapsulates that kind of like superficial token lip service to like social justice. But it comes off just really like, it just feels like a misfire. Yeah. It just feels like, it's just annoying, I guess. It's like
okay.
And again, I'm as woke as they come.
It's like, okay, we get it,
But,
we get it.
Yeah, I don't know. She's very horny.
But then she's able to do something in the end, so that's good. She's able to liberate her people.
I do like to say Emilia Clarke is like, how does that work? It's like, it works. Like, what?
What does that mean? There's so much ambiguous language in this movie.
No, it's ambiguous.
I forgot where I was going with that.
She's woke.
No. Yes, so her...
I'm glad she got exploded.
No!
No!
So even with his relationship with Lando seems a little bit, like, taped together. Whereas I feel like Chewie's is really the only one. But, like, we don't really see Chewie a lot.
That's the thing is, like, it's the initial interaction is probably their best moment together.
Yeah.
And then he kind of just, like, ends up... Like, they kind of just go from that to, like, the relationship we've already known. Like, right? So... like, he's not uneasy that, like, there's, like, a giant gorilla Sasquatch guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
Or like, you know, with him and Lando being so, like, friendly at the end. I'm like, when did y'all get friendly like that? Since when are you happy to see each other? What? I guess
the relationship is always characterized by, like, fair weather friends. Right? You know what I mean by that? I don't know.
But
it's my whole takeaway with this though is the movie for the production history of it, like the issues, as well as just like the inherent like problems you have with like making a Han Solo prequel movie. It has no right being as good as it is. And it's a shame because I think a lot of people like really don't like this movie. And again, I don't think this is like great, but I think it's one of the better things to come out of the Disney Star Wars stuff, which is not saying a lot. The bar is really low, but it's something different. I've been surprised doing this rewatch. So far I've liked a lot of these way more, these Disney ones, except Rogue One. Rogue One is a piece of shit. But
I don't even know what to say about that.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to hear some trivia?
Yeah, maybe that'll...
Okay. Dryden Voss, who's played by Paul Bettany, not Bethany, Bettany.
Bettany.
Vision from the MCU.
Oh, is that the same guy?
Yes.
Oh, my friend.
He only had the facial stripes.
Yes.
The facial stripes were added in post-production.
Oh.
According to Paul Bettany, he didn't know about it until he saw a photo Ron Howard sent to him.
Oh. Wait, so
No, he's human.
Is he a human?
He's human.
Okay.
And I think though it's like related to his emotions, so like when he gets angry, like they'll turn more red.
Yes, I saw that.
Alden Ehrenreich brought his copy of the Millennium Falcon Owner's Workshop Manual, which I imagine was some kind of like maybe old canon book.
Yeah.
He brought his copy of that to talk about button sequences for a takeoff scene on the Falcon.
Aw.
So he's like, here's how we start. Here's like what you have to do.
That's cute. Yeah.
Right. I feel really bad because he kind of got Like, you got cast as Han Solo, and you were told, oh, this might become a couple movies.
Ugh.
So I kind of feel bad for him. Because, again, he clearly, I think, was excited to be Han Solo for more than just this movie.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Han speaks to Chewbacca in the Wookiee language. It's the first time a non-Wookiee speaks the language, and it's the first time the language is translated on screen with subtitles. He's like, rah, rah.
Yeah.
That was kind of funny.
I thought that was strange because he's never spoken like that before. Like,
I guess it explains how he knows what Chewie is saying when Chewie talks. Because like Chewie will go like,
how does he know?
Huh?
But how does he know?
He picked it up somewhere. I don't know. So like in the originals, he'll be like, rah, rah, rah. And he's like, you said it, Chewie.
But then why does he never speak to Chewie in?
Because George Lucas had him the heart.
He never gives him the courtesy of speaking.
Well, maybe it's one of those things where it's like two people speak different languages, and it's like they each know how to understand the other language, but they don't know how to speak it. So it's like if me and like I can speak English, he can speak Japanese, but I understand Japanese, he understands English, so we can both just talk in our native language. Maybe it's like that. Maybe Chewbacca understands English, or as we say, it's basic. Is the name of English in the Star Wars universe because of course English.
Basic.
It's called basic. But then the written alphabet is Arabic.
Like everyone knows, or Han is like a polyglot.
He's a polyglot.
He knows what R2 is saying. He knows what Chewbacca's saying. He knows what everyone's saying.
He can't go to one of those Korean nail salons and they talk shit about you in Korean. He'll know. He'll know what they're saying.
I heard what you've been saying about me.
Yeah. L337, which is the woke droid,
Yes.
was achieved through a combination of practical and computer effects. It looks really good. Phoebe Waller-Bridge wore a costume that consisted of the droid's head, chest, leg, and arms with a green skin-tight suit underneath. The green suit was digitally removed in post-production and replaced with mechanical parts such as cables and wires.
Oh, that's why. Okay, because it looks like she's walking.
Like she's walking like a human. Like not like
Yeah.
the way someone would CGI design a droid to walk.
Yeah, she like hips moving, like kind of like legs going. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's like very realistic. I wouldn't have looked at that.
Dryden Voss's original concept art portrayed him as a dinosaur bird-like figure. With the development of a love triangle between him, Han, and Kira, his design became more humanoid, majestic, and handsome in order to evoke more jealousy from Han. I guess they were like,
Was he jealous?
I guess there's like this weird love triangle because he's like, you have my girl.
Was there?
I guess so.
I don't think so.
There's a love triangle because obviously Dryden Voss likes Kira.
Yeah.
He's like her sex slave.
Yeah, he's like her sex slave.
Yeah, and Han is like beefing because he's like, I want to make her my sex slave.
But they don't encounter like that. They never have a conversation about that.
I know, but there's just a tension. I don't know. It was noted in the original film that stormtroopers do not form the primary ranks of the Imperial Army, and in fact are in fact supposed to be the elite mooks.
Mooks.
Mooks is like a term just meaning like a dumb kind of henchman thing. This finally plays out with the introduction of the Imperial infantry, who, as shown in the Battle of Minden, are mostly green, and by green we mean new, not green like their color. Mostly green conscripts like Han, and are really so terrified, untrained, and incompetent that stormtroopers qualify as elite soldiers by comparison. If you think about it, they're not very good soldiers in the originals. They get really good in the sequels. Like, they're really scary in the sequel trilogy, but in the originals, they're like buffoons, basically.
Yeah.
That's like the gimmick, like not the gimmick, the joke that like stormtroopers like have really bad aim.
Yeah.
Because if you think about like those characters in the Death Star should have been shot so much sooner.
Yes, of course.
They're like it's like Luke fighting against like 10 guys, and they all miss him. Han bears a scar on his chin, which is only barely noticeable in some shots. It's a recreation of the scar Harrison Ford has in real life, which is also visible in every Star Wars and Indiana Jones movie he appeared in. I did not see because it was so fucking dark!
Too dark to see.
With this film, Warwick Davis has been involved in 10 Star Wars related projects, starting with Return of the Jedi.
Whoa.
Because he showed up as a cameo and other stuff or whatever. The Imperial March, is dun dun
Yes,
dun,
of course.
is played in a major key during the recruitment film at the Corellian spaceport.
I didn't notice that.
I kind of like that they kind of have like the version we have in the United States of like setting up your table your recruiting table at like a homeless shelter. Like, come on, homeless people, come join the army.
Where were they? Like a bus stop or
kind of like almost like an immigrant. Like kind of like a Star Wars version of like a you know, like when you get off the when you fly to another country.
Oh, customs.
Customs. Yeah. That's not immigration. Customs. During an interview on the Graham Norton show, Phoebe Waller-Bridge said that prior to her casting, she had never seen a Star Wars movie and didn't know what a droid was. She decided to play L337 as a human in her audition because she didn't know what a droid was. She didn't know what a droid was. What? When one of the directors asked her if she can be more droidy while making a mechanical hand gesture, she deduced that droids are robots. Although the casting directors asked her to try it again, they liked her original interpretation of the character and gave her the part. So again, she's like the most undroidy droid that we've seen, I think.
Yeah.
Which again, I talked about liking Kier because she's different. The woke droid is different. It's new. Kessel is, which is where they go to get the coaxium, is controlled by the Pike Syndicate, a recurring criminal gang from the Clone Wars cartoon. So again, like, there's this interesting thing in the Disney where it's like they're putting everything on a semi-equal footing. Because like before it was like this different levels of canon, and usually something introduced in a lower level of canon would never appear like upwards.
Yes, of course.
Whereas here, like we saw Guerrera was a Clone Wars character that showed up in Rogue One, and you kind of have something similar here.
Yeah.
The opening scene on Corellia, and the opening scene in Rogue One, in which Krennic takes Galen Erso, takes place 13 years before the events of the original film. So I guess this film mostly takes place 10 years before. Because if the opening scene takes place 13 years before, 3 years later, it would be -10.
Okay.
The sabacc table featured in Han and Lando's game had to be carefully designed, big enough to allow room for the puppeteers and the alien characters, while small enough to keep the principals as close to camera as possible. I think I looked up, I didn't put in the trivia, there are rules to sabacc.
Of course.
I wonder if sabacc was created for this movie. I wonder if it's from... No, but I'm wondering if it was from the old canon and it was carried over.
I thought does he just say card or dice game?
No, it was from the original, the old canon. Sabacc was a popular card game that was often played for high stakes. So there are rules to sabacc. That, like, it's not just, like, random things.
Of course not.
We should learn how to play.
Oh, my frick.
No, I'm too busy playing Chain of Memories. With cards and building decks and stuff and all stuff.
Oh, but that is something cool though in this one. Like going back to the originals, it has a lot more creativity in terms of like characters and little alien guys and stuff.
Just because the technology is better now, you can make it's more easy. Whereas when they did the original film, the budget was so strained. They were literally just like using like some of the creatures in the cantina were like cool Star Wars characters. Other ones were just costumes they found. So there's like a wolf man.
I know
there's like a praying mantis.
I know it was a recycled one. No, I'm saying because
I'm agreeing with you.
I'm saying because like in the newer ones in the sequels, like we were talking about how there aren't as many like aliens. Saying there are lots of aliens.
There are a shit ton of aliens.
A respectable amount of aliens.
Michael Kenneth Williams, who's an actor, you can look him up, you might recognize him and stuff, was originally cast as Dryden Voss and shot various scenes with Phil Lord and Christopher Miller when they were directing the film. He was unable to return to the set for the reshoots after Ron Howard took over, and the role was recast with Paul Bettany. Isn't that crazy? You get cast in a movie, you film a lot of it, and then they're like, hey, we're actually swapping out the director, and he's like, well, I can't do that. I'm busy. Like, okay, we're recasting you. He's like, I was in a Star Wars movie and I was cut out.
How do you feel about that? Like, yay, I got paid, but also like, an actor is to be seen, right? Like,
yeah, I don't know if there was enough footage to constitute an entirely different cut. But I think it would be really just interesting for historical purposes for Disney to eventually release this footage. Because I'm sure there's, between what they ended up shooting for the Ron Howard version, there's enough where you could like piece together a version. And that's not unprecedented. So famously, Superman 2 from the 80s, they were filming Superman 1 and 2 at the same time, kind of like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, and then...
and so they had filmed a lot of 2.
The guy died, right?
No. No, the director got replaced.
Director got replaced.
So they hired another guy to redo basically the whole movie. But years later, like in the 2000s, they took the footage they had and kind of tried to reconstitute what that version would have been like a full version, using some footage that like isn't fully complete. It's like shots that like would have been altered. Like you might have like a boom mic and but they have a full version of it. It'd be cool to get the original version of this movie. But I don't know if that's possible because with the other characters you could just use other shots. But if it's like a whole other actor, it might be hard to do that for some. But I don't know what the scene. I wonder how different the film was in terms of like the story structure. I imagine it's the same, just like they were improvising the dialogue on set.
Yeah, I don't know.
The casting of Solo was one of the longest casting processes since Universal's search for Christian Grey for 50 Shades of Grey.
What?
I guess that was like a big thing trying to figure out who they're going to cast.
Okay.
Jamie Costa, who played Han Solo in the short fan film Han Solo: A Smuggler's Trade from 2016, wanted to play Han Solo in this film. He posted a video of himself auditioning for the role on his YouTube channel.
Oh. Wait,
like,
this was a real thing?
This was a fan film.
A fan film.
As I said, it was a short fan film.
A short fan film.
Sometimes I wonder if you only hear every other word I say.
Smuggler. So he just made it. Oh.
I think he was in it.
Oh. Okay.
L337's memory ends up being uploaded into the Millennium Falcon computer, explaining why the ship has such extensive navigational maps. It also adds a humorous touch to the scene in Empire Strikes Back, where C-3PO gets plugged into the Falcon to find out what is wrong with the hyperdrive, and tells Han, quote, "Sir, I don't know where your ship learned to communicate, but it has the most peculiar dialect."
Oh.
End quote. In the radio adaptation of The Empire Strikes Back, C-3PO even says he's having difficulty talking to the Falcon's computer because she is, quote, rather rude. End quote. So kind of little tie in there.
Little something.
Darth Maul's appearance was kept so secretive that in order to film his scenes, Ray Park, who was the physical...
Yes.
Because remember in that movie, another guy did the voice.
Yes.
You're not sure. In the original movie,
Yes.
Ray Park, we went, yeah...
He was the man. He knew
Yes.
the karate or whatever.
For his like 2 lines, it was someone else doing the voice.
Yes.
So in order to keep the films a secret, or his appearance a secret, Ray Park was driven to Pinewood Studios in a limousine with blacked out windows.
Oh, wow.
He arrived the day after Maul's dialogue was recorded and filmed his scene in a cordoned off area of the studio. So for all we know, Emilia Clarke didn't even know what she was going to be looking at. Like she was maybe just told, "You're like the higher up guy." By this time, Maul had been resurrected in the Clone Wars cartoon, and it also appeared in Rebels, which would take place after this movie. But in those shows, I think they touch on his criminal, like him kind of, because basically his whole thing is he's resurrected in the Clone Wars. He gets robotic legs. But he's kind of disillusioned, like he's not necessarily working for the Emperor because he's like, he understands he was used as a pawn, so he's kind of almost like this like third other party. And so the person who did the voice for him on that show, in Clone Wars and Rebels, did the voice in this movie. It wasn't the original guy.
Okay.
And actually, that'll be like one of the other trivia points here. I'll talk about in a second. But the novelization contains one scene beyond the movie ending, showing Enfys Nest delivering the coaxium to Saw Gerrera, who's accompanied by a young Jyn Erso.
What? We saw this?
No.
No.
I feel like you only listen to every other word I say.
novelization.
So, the contained scene, the ending, and like...
No, the novelization? Okay.
The book
Okay, the
had
book.
an extra scene...
Okay. Oh, I
showing Enfys Nest delivering.
I didn't know there was a book of this. Okay.
I said it, but you only heard because I said every other word, so you only heard the
because you said
contained
novelization,
scene.
and I was thinking like novel.
The book version.
No, like the novelization, like the newing.
No, the newing. I knew it.
Like the newest thing.
No. Anyway, the scene showed Enfys Nest delivering the coaxium to Saw Gerrera, who is accompanied by young Jyn Erso, the female lead from.
Yes.
Well, with you, I have no idea what you remember and don't remember. Peter Serafinowicz, who had previously voiced Darth Maul for the original film, He had done that. He did not like the experience. He claimed that the pay was meager. George Lucas gave him poor direction. Most of his lines were deleted. He wasn't invited to the premiere, and he didn't think the movie was very good.
Oh.
Nevertheless, he accepted the offer to voice Maul again, and he even recorded lines for the character. He was looking forward to surprise his kids that he was in the new Star Wars film. However, he discovered on Twitter that people were attending the film's premiere, and he wondered why he wasn't invited again.
Oh, shit.
Shortly afterwards, he received an email informing him that his character was recast with Sam Witwer for continuity reasons, because Witwer had voiced Maul in the Clone Wars and Rebels. Sarah Finowitz admitted that he didn't watch the film ever since, as it wasn't his Darth Maul. So after all of that, then they were like, we want you to come back and do the voice. And then he did it, and then they were like, actually, we decided the last minute to change it.
Bro, justice for Peter. What the hell?
Us Peters really have
That's really fucked
on
up.
these streets. Do you want to hear some critical reception?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of the reaction at the time, it was a little bit more than meh, but not much. So on Rotten Tomatoes, it's 69%. The critical consensus is, quote, a flawed yet fun and fast-paced space adventure, Solo, a Star Wars story, should satisfy newcomers to the saga as well as longtime fans who check their expectations at the theater door, end quote. And I remember because of how late like they were doing all these reshoots, like the first trailer didn't come out until like February. Mm-hmm. Like the marketing campaign, like you would have, like it'd be an interesting
like
case study, huh?
Of 18.
Of 18.
Oh wow.
Like the marketing campaigns only started like a couple months before the movie came out. Mm-hmm. So it's no wonder the movie did not perform very well, right? Which we talked about in terms of the box office, right? Writing for Rolling Stone, Peter Travers gave the film 2.5 stars out of 4, complimenting the cast but criticizing the lack of creativity, saying, quote, somehow Han Solo, the roguish Star Wars hellion famous for breaking all the rules, finds himself in a feel-good movie that doesn't break any, end quote. And that's another thing. The film doesn't feel of the character.
Yeah.
It doesn't capture the ethos of the character.
Yeah.
A.O. Scott of the New York Times said, quote, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but also holds whatever irreverent, anarchic impulses it might possess in careful check, end quote. He noted that it is, quote, a curiously low-stakes blockbuster, in effect, a filmed Wikipedia page, end quote.
Oh my goodness.
Michael Rechtschaffen of The Hollywood Reporter praised the cast and production values. Production value.
Oh man.
It's not the values of the product. I hate but felt the film as a whole felt too safe, writing, quote, while Ehrenreich's Solo proves adept at maneuvering the Millennium Falcon out of some tight spots, the picture itself follows a safely predictable course. Missing here are the sort of plot-related or visual curveballs thrown by Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi or Gareth Edwards with Rogue One, end quote. Particular praise was pointed towards Glover's performance as Lando Calrissian.
Yes.
USA Today asserted that Glover's Calrissian, quote, outshone and outswaggered, end quote, the title character of Solo. The Wrap compared Glover to Cary Grant, proclaiming, quote, Glover sweeps this film off its feet, end quote. While also praising the rest of the cast, Stephanie Zacharek of Time singled Glover out as particularly, highlighting his, quote, unruly, charismatic elegance, end quote.
I think he was really good.
He was quite suave. I would let him do what he wants to me. I would let him do it.
What?
We would make it work. If he can fuck a droid, he could certainly fuck me.
What?
In terms of mono reaction, not particularly great. So on Letterboxd has a 2.9.
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel is fair.
Out of 5.
Out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Which I understand, but I feel like it's a little too low. I think this movie, again, gets a little more hate than it deserves. Mm-hmm. Hate's is too strong of a word. I feel like it is not as mediocre as people make it out to be. Yeah. It's maybe one step up above mediocre, but it's not mediocre.
It's like, just brighten it up a little, and I think, like, it'd be great. I think it's good. It's fun, it's whatever, it's...
Again, everyone's giving it their all, I feel.
It's not a Han Solo movie, but it is a good movie.
And you know what? I liked, and I didn't write this in my notes, but I'm just remembering it now, like, I like this little, like, when they're doing the Kessel Run. Like, when they're trying to go through, like, the cloud, and, like, the portals and stuff.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Like, I thought that was a very well-conceived little action sequence. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, there's, like, fun stuff here. Mm-hmm. And he finally gets to go behind the wheel is the wrong word, but you know what I mean? In the cockpit. Mm-hmm. Also, it's funny when I forget why he's like, how old are you? And he's like, 190 years old? You look great!
Oh, because he was like... Because, what was it? Chewbacca hops into the the passenger seat, and he's like, wait, you didn't tell me you were a pilot. How long have you been flying? And he's like, 190 years. You look great.
It would be funny if Chewbacca, like, because even in the sequels, like, it would make sense if he's starting to gray a little.
When is Itchy? Does he have a family?
I don't know if Itchy is canon anymore. He was wiped from existence. Oh, this is not to keep complaining about.
Is it Itchy or Lumpy? Which one is which?
I forget.
Man.
Not to keep complaining about the sequel trilogy, but like how I said, how I feel like they were too like reverent of like the iconography. So it's like Han Solo is like just dressed as he is, like in a Force Awakens, even though he's like 80 fucking years old or whatever. They should have made Chewbacca gray. Like that would just be something different. There's nothing to do with this movie. I just thought. I never thought of that.
Made him gray.
Like make him like a gray Wookiee. Like he's older now. But it's like they have to make sure.
In this,
no, in the Force Awakens.
In the Force Awakens. Okay.
But they want to be able to sell a Chewbacca toy that looks exactly like the Chewbacca you know, because their intention is not to make a good movie. Their intention is to make a lot of shit, as much money from this franchise as they can possibly milk. Do you want to hear some reviews I found? Number one Gizmo fan writes, "Who is responsible for lighting this movie? Please give them my number. I would like to have a word with them. There is no way that the cinematographer of fucking Arrival did this. I literally could not see anything that was going on in the first hour. What the fuck happened? Who is responsible? Other than that, I have no strong emotions toward this movie. Good night." And again, this is weird because yes, this cinematographer Greg Fraser would later go on to do the Dune movies, which are so beautifully shot, and the Batman, which is dark, but like it's intentionally dark and like it has a good enough contrast. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know what was going on here.
Oh, excuse me. It's Lumpy. Itchy is the father.
Itchy is the horny old man.
Yes, we like Lumpy.
Oh, we are
Lumpy,
excited.
who is actually played by a woman, Patty Maloney.
Oh my goodness. Patrick Willems writes, "This movie has no need to exist, but since it does, I'm glad it's mostly fun." And that's kind of how that kind of sums up my feelings exactly. Yeah. You know, it's like this movie really doesn't need to exist, or maybe shouldn't exist, but like it was an enjoyable. Like I found myself actually enjoying it. Like I wasn't like, all right, how much longer? Like I was enjoying it.
Yeah, I actually really. I think the reason why, at least I'm being,
it's very superficially enjoyable. It's only after you think about it that you're like, that doesn't really work. But like when you're watching, I'm like, this is fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like one of the reasons why I'm being particularly enthusiastic about it, I don't know if this is like for you as well, but it's just like Rogue One was just so bad.
It was just so.
I'm like, wow, this is like really surprised. Like this is really good.
Also, now we have two of these Star Wars story movies that basically had director swaps. Though the last one still technically, it was like, oh, it's just we're doing some reshoots and we're having another guy help with the reshoots. This one, it was a full on like we're firing them. But again, it shows like the issue with the creative direction that like you shouldn't be in a position where you have to like we have to rethink this whole movie. Like you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be at that level. And then Jay writes, "Lord and Miller had a scene with Han and Lando fucking, and that's what Kathleen Kennedy calls creative differences." That'd be hilarious.
Oh my god.
In terms of the legacy of this film, again, because it didn't do very well, in June of 2018, Collider claimed that all future anthology films were on hold due to the disappointing financial performance of Solo. This film basically, because again, the idea was to do a Star Wars film every year in theaters, every year.
How?
By doing all these little side, basically they wanted to do an MCU approach. We have all these different films all happening within the continuity.
I know, but don't you?
This film performed so badly because at least Rogue One did really well, and it was well received. This film did so poorly, it forced Disney to go like, we're putting a hold on everything. A day later, the Lucasfilm denied the rumors as quote unquote inaccurate and confirmed that there are multiple unannounced films in development. Bob Iger has said that the production of new films would go on hiatus after 2019's The Rise of Skywalker, though none were canceled. Some have been canceled since, but notably The Rise of Skywalker is the last theatrical Star Wars movie we have had, and that was 2019. Because basically Disney then decided, let's move to the Disney Plus side. They do Mandalorian. That's a pretty big success, which I never have understood. I thought it was kind of like meh from the start. And then they went, well, let's do what we were going to do with the movies, but on Disney Plus. So there's Mandalorian, then there's a Boba Fett show, then there's Ahsoka, and then there's Andor, and we're gonna do Clone Wars new season, then we're gonna do a spin-off of Clone Wars. And now they have the same problem where everything is just like middling. They did the Acolyte and that got canceled. Like they just keep doing all these things that are getting canceled. And it's like the issue wasn't, it was because they needed to be TV shows. The issue was you're just pumping out mediocre content way too fast.
Well, I was gonna say like not
you know what I mean?
Like not even creative. Like how can you do that? But like just practically, like does it? Editing and VFX like take a while. Like how are you?
Well, the idea is you would have different teams doing it, I guess. But
I suppose, but like in under a year for like an entire.
Well, the idea is that they would be in development for longer, and then they start cascading out. It's not like they're being made. It's not like once you have to wait for the last film to be done and finished and released to then start working on the next one.
No, I know, but still, just like I don't know. This doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah. Though this is kind of interesting. In December of 2020, a Lando limited series was announced for Disney Plus with a story by Justin Simeon, who I think is the guy. Oh, what did he do? I think he was. If I'm not mistaken, he is the director of the Dear White People movie. That would then become the Netflix show.
Yes.
And I believe he also directed the new Haunted Mansion movie that no one really liked. But that's kind of interesting, especially if you have Glover helping write it, because Glover is also like a great filmmaker and writer, as we saw with Atlanta. Which that's a show I started and loved, but only watched like 5 episodes, then I got busy.
Yeah.
In May of 2022, Kennedy stated that the series was still in development. They've been saying that about a gajillion projects for years now, and that they were having discussions with Glover about reprising the role. He's gonna get too old.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be by the time they do, it's 2024. By the time this comes out, it'll be almost a decade after.
Yeah. I mean, he's only 41.
No, but I'm just saying compared to where we saw him last.
Yeah, that's true. Because then eventually...
So unless it takes place later...
Yeah.
You're going to have to do this weird thing where it's going to take place a year after this one, but the actor is like a decade older.
Yeah. Well, because eventually
it's like in the Kenobi show
to,
when they tried to do a flashback to the Clone Wars and they had like 40-year-old Hayden Christensen be 19-year-old Anakin.
Did they didn't change anything?
They tried to use some CGI to smooth out some of his wrinkles, but it was still obvious he's like 40 years old. Anyway, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say because eventually he has to go to Cloud City, right? So it's like they only have a limited window of Lando's storytelling before it is the Lando that we know, and then it's like, okay, well,
he's already kind of the Lando we know, though.
No, yeah, but I mean, like, it's either like beforehand or after, right? Like,
though
I don't know.
I would be hopeful for this only because I wrote off Andor. As being like, oh, they're doing a spin-off of a spin-off, like, who cares, whatever. And Andor turned out to be not only one of the best Star Wars things, but like one of the best TV shows I've ever seen. So, you know, I've been wrong before, but I mean, statistically, most of the stuff that Disney has produced since the buyout has been middling.
Yeah.
So,
what was this, 2018? Almost 2025? It's like 8 years?
If it came out tomorrow, it'll have been... If it comes out this May, which it won't, because I don't even know if they've even started really working on it.
December 2020. Okay, like...
It'll have been... If it were to come out this May, it'll already be like 7 years later. But it's not coming out this May. At the earliest, it's coming out in 2, maybe 3 years.
Oh my god.
You know? Okay, Viviana. Favorite part? Scene, character, actor, line. What do you got for me?
Donald Glover.
He was so sexy.
He was just.
And when we did Batman, we talked about all the sexy ladies. It's time we had a sexy man for a change. Because again, Star Wars has had a decided lack of sex appeal. The only sex appeal we've really had is in Episode 2, the love story between Anakin and Padme, is like the most overtly romantic, quote unquote, like or sexual feeling. Because like there's a romance in the original trilogy with Han and Leia, but it's like a movie romance.
Yeah.
Whereas like Padme and Anakin, and then Han and Kira in this, they are horny. Like you can sense they are horny.
Yeah.
Whereas every other Star Wars film, like, you're like not sure if they're just Barbie figures that just don't have any genitals. They just create life through the Force, right?
Yes, like midichlorians.
Okay, I think my favorite thing is gonna be the vision of a potential Star Wars that we never got because this movie didn't do very well. Like, I liked this idea of, like, this group doing stuff of more kind of a crime story in the Star Wars universe. I don't think it was done super well here, but I think the seeds were here. I think there was enough ingredients here to do something really interesting going forward.
Yeah.
And Star Wars is no stranger to the first thing being a certain level of quality, and then the next one completely blowing the original out of the water. So, I think that's my favorite part, is like the shadows of things that were to come, but never transpired.
Because let me tell you,
I know it's really heady.
I did not see that twist coming. I don't know if it was obvious to anyone else, but I was not expecting that. So I think if they could,
this morally gray character doing something morally gray. What?
No, I didn't think he was that morally gray. I didn't think he was that morally gray. I thought he was our friend. Apparently not. Anyways, so yeah, I think if they can do little things like that, then it could have gone a little farther. But
Yeah. Okay, Viviana.
Did you see? I was like legitimately like,
I know you were.
What?
I know. I was like, oh god. What?
He said he was leaving. I didn't think he was coming back.
You're autistic ass. You were like, yep, I believe him.
Well,
I believe him.
Why else would he come back?
I don't know. You're like, god damn it. I believe him. Okay. Viviana, 1 to 10. What are you giving this movie?
Okay, I've been thinking about this, and I think I'm gonna give it a 7, which I feel weird about, but
it's your rating. It'd be weird if you didn't do what you feel in your heart. That's what's weird. You know what makes you a loser, kid? Not being yourself. That's
well, because I'm trying to think of like,
would you watch this again? Like not because you have to.
Sure, yeah. I think if we were able to turn up the TV a little bit, then I might actually be able to watch it.
Though I tried doing that when we were watching, but turning up the brightness wouldn't help because it's still really low contrast. So it'll still be hard to see. Things will be brighter, but it doesn't mean you'll be able to see it better.
It did help though a little bit. It did help
a smidge. Yes.
But I know I'm kind of torn between like, just like my enjoyment of it or like its placement in the franchise.
I think you just have to follow your heart.
I think in both.
I think you just have to follow your heart. Because by the nature of this show, this whole show, every season, we're not just looking at the mainline things, we're looking at a bunch of random shit that often isn't going to fit into the franchise neatly.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've never taken into account like how well is it at being part of the franchise.
Oh, you never did that?
I think we talk about that, but I don't know if I'm like, I'm going to give it a lower score because it's not a good Batman movie. Like, if it's a good movie, like, I'm going to...
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you like it, then you like it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put it surprisingly on the top of my 7s.
What? All your 7s? That's crazy. So over The Force Awakens, Empire Strikes Back, the original Star Wars, the second Ewoks film, and the 2D Clone Wars. It's better than all of those things. That's preposterous.
Well,
but you have to follow your heart. So, okay, that's where we're gonna put that.
Okay.
All right, that's crazy. Oh shit, hold on. God damn it. Show bookmark. Okay, there we go. Like that's insane.
So number.
That's out of 17 movies. That's your number 4. The fact that it's above all those other movies is insane. I don't care about the score. I care more about the placement. That's insane. But I don't care about the score because I think I too, surprisingly, I was not expecting this. I'm gonna also give it a 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
I said,
I'm so
I've
surprised.
been enjoying these Disney Star Wars movies way more than I thought I would. And more than I had in the past. I've only given out 2 7s.
Yeah.
And they've both been to the 2 sequel films we watched, The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. And I think think this is ridiculous. I think I like this more than The Force Awakens.
Okay.
Why
is that ridiculous?
Well, I guess to anyone else, but to you put it over The Empire fucking Strikes Back.
Oh.
You also put the Ewok movie ahead of The Empire Strikes Back. So, do I like this more or less than The Last Jedi? Because again, with The Last Jedi, it has higher highs but lower lows. Whereas this movie, Viviana's doing a thinking face because she can't remember what happened yesterday, let alone a movie we watched a week ago.
No.
So I'm like, it's like, can I forgive The Last Jedi's shortcomings because of its strengths?
I thought this one was more entertaining.
Yeah,
But up to you.
I'm really torn. I'm actually really torn. I think, you know what? I think I'm going to put this above The Last Jedi. And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say this movie gets better as it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk away. Like, they always say, like, in anything, but especially, like, in a film or, like, an essay or, like, a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you always want to end on a high note. Because that's the last thing people are going to remember.
Mm-hmm.
This movie gets better as it goes along, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Jedi gets worse as it goes along.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously it's not a perfect escalation, like it ebbs and flows, but the trajectory is... So I think I'm gonna... Stop editing stuff. I'm the editor of the Google Doc.
Okay, so yours is number 5. Okay, so not too far off.
No, but again, it's the things that you put... It's less about... It's what you put above... What you put it above is what's ridiculous.
Well...
Because it's not that it's number 4, it's that what are the 3 above it? And most of them are not the ones you would think would be above it. Okay, so that is out of 17 films. Surprise! I did not expect this going into this.
No.
This is your number 4 and my number 5 out of 17 movies we've watched.
Wow. Good job,
That's
Donald.
crazy. That's really interesting.
Good, Donald. It's your birthday.
It's your birthday. And we will never see anything from this through line probably ever again. But people did try, because after like the whole Snyder Cut thing with the DC movies, people were like, really, like save Solo, hashtag save Solo.
Or at least a Kira show or something.
A Kira show.
I mean, Emilia Clarke, are you kidding me?
Like, you have Emilia Clarke in a sexy role. Like, she's now going to be an evil kingpin.
She was dressed so fabulously. You know how, like,
when they first met, she had a V-neck cut down all the way to Venezuela, basically. When he first sees her?
No, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about in the end, when they were coming into his office place, and she had like the jumpsuit, like the black jumpsuit on, but like it had like the like kind of off kilter tool belt thing or whatever, because you know how like each Star Wars lady has their own little outfit.
Yes, of
and
course.
So it was so cute. I was like, ma'am, how are you dressed so fabulously?
And there was actually a really, really good shot when she's up in the tower and he has left and she's about to desert him. Mm-hmm. She like looks out and you get like this like Venetian blind kind of like light shadow thing on her. Like it looked really good, almost like she's like in a prison.
Mm-hmm. Well, she did. She shut the blinds.
That's
to
what I'm
talk
saying.
To Darth.
Like she's in prison of her own making, right?
Yeah.
So that was like some good. So like maybe that was my favorite part. Like I liked her character and what they could have done with her. Mm-hmm. Had this movie been a little more in depth, or they could have explored it in later stuff.
They totally teased with that, because I was like, what has she done?
I know.
What did she do? And then they never said anything.
She milked a moof. She's a moof milk.
I was like, come on, let's hear it. What'd she do?
Well, luckily, honey, our show was not poorly received. It has not been canceled.
Well, we'll see.
because that's it for this week's episode. Now that's what I call a franchise. Next week, we'll be watching the next film in the franchise, the 2019 film Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Viviana, where can they find us?
You guys can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Franchise Podcast.
And if you have the time, leave a rating for us on Apple Podcasts, because apparently that helps.
And if you have even more time, leave us a review too.
We know you have many podcasting options, and we thank you for choosing us. Peace out, guys.
Later, Gators.